Welcome to the very first Look Up Tonight with the Orange County Astronomers. We're one of the largest astronomy clubs in the USA with more than 800 members. The program tonight is from our May 2003 meeting. We have two speakers for you, and our first speaker is Chris Butler with his unique What's Up presentation, giving us an informative and highly entertaining tour of the night sky.
Well, yeah, I'm gone 1 month, and I'm finally back. Yes, indeed, I did just get back from Georgia this last time. Thank you for allowing me out to go talk to the nice folks in Georgia. We had a lovely time. No moonshine this time. It was Irish whiskey and something they call blackberry brandy. I'm well preserved, folks. But we had a lovely time. Thank you for that. And let's go ahead and actually, just so you guys kind of wonder about all this. This is what it was like out there. That's the moon through dogwoods. They'd all come out. This dogwood is actually now, if you look at the Weather Channel, it's in Tennessee, where it was thrown. No, actually, it was amazingly nice there. Actually, now the guy's house I stayed at, the astronomer Jerry Armstrong. This is his observing setup, and that's Jerry's telescope base there. That's what his observing pad looks like. I will say this is a lovely place. However, just after I left, they had a 4.9 earthquake. I thought that was great. I wish I'd been there for that one. Just would have been enough to make me homesick, you know. And they all called and said how terrified they were of earthquakes. Then they had the tornadoes. Now they say, we'll take the earthquakes, all right? So enough of Georgia. Let's go on to the world of juggling my schedule. I will admit this is a little bit of an improvised What's Up because, hey, this was me today, folks. Things have been a little bit busy, but the stars wait for no man, so we will launch into the Planet Roundup and see what we've got going on. We do have quite a few things going on. First of all, as regards the moon, it continues stubbornly to exist. Pretty much doing the same thing, goes around and around. The May 1st was our new moon this month. The months and moons are pretty much the same for a lot of this year. The most interesting thing is on May 15th, of course, we have the full moon. As any of you know, I'm sure, we never have a really full, nice, bright moon. It simply can't be done. To get the moon, of course, completely full is like trying to see a completely illuminated baseball in sunlight. All you've got to do is hold it exactly opposite the sun. That means your head's in the way and it's in the shadow of your head. Try doing it. It's incredibly frustrating. Kids will try it for hours before they give in. Okay, let me turn this way. It really does work out that way. This month, the moon actually does pass through the Earth's shadow. It rises in eclipse, and then after it rises, this lasts for a couple hours, will gradually crawl out of the Earth's shadow. So, absolutely cheap date, guys. You want to impress the girl right after sunset on the 15th. Take her out, show her the moon. But what you do is you lie and tell her that the moon won't shine because she hasn't, well, whatever, kissed you. Okay, you know, come up with something. Work it, brother. And then the moon will come out in all its glory for you, all right? Just a suggestion, a little larceny there. Now, on May 22nd, we have a last quarter moon, and then, of course, just slightly after that is the Riverside Telescope Makers Conference, the largest clustering of proper nerds outside of a sci-fi con, where we all just go to kind of get group therapy, and it's wonderful. I will be there. The important thing is that means the moon will rise late. We're going to have nice, dark skies this year for stargazing. So that's kind of the moon report. Going on to the moon, I wanted to explain briefly why the eclipses only happen every once in a while. You'd figure it would happen every time the moon goes around. Actually, the moon's orbit is tilted with respect to the Earth's orbit around the sun, just enough. The moon usually misses. It either goes above or below the sun in the sky. You don't notice it because it's pretty close. The moon looks mostly full. Kind of the way it's seen there, or on the other side, down, it would be down a few degrees. You would be invisible right next to the sun. However, the orientation of this tilt remains pretty constant as the Earth goes around the sun, so that the points where it crosses the green line, it can actually pass in front of the sun, will happen actually twice a year. So about every 6 months, you can have a lunar eclipse, approximately. And at the same time, if you're wondering if that means it lines up on the other side and the moon can come around to get in front of the sun, meaning a solar eclipse, yeah, that also happens. The only trick is, the reason you don't hear about a solar eclipse or see one every 6 months, is that the moon shadow is quite small. You have to be on the right part of the Earth to see it. You have to spend a lot of money and go to some exotic part of the world. Why don't they ever hit a good spot? I mean, maybe 99 or whatever was pretty good. But normally it's like, Patagonia or something. Just luck of the draw. But anyway, about every 6 months, we get a nice, free, cheap lunar eclipse. My improvised star map showing the position of the sun and the planets. The important thing about this is the actual zodiac constellations. The yellow line there is the path the sun takes during the year. It is the path the planets can be seen on. Saturn on the top chart is in the constellation of Taurus, where it's been for a while. It is actually quite near the sun. Now, of course, all of this moves across the sky as the Earth rotates. Saturn follows the sun right now, so the sky seems to be moving from left to right. That means that Saturn sets right after the sun. Saturn is actually seeming to get closer to the sun all the time because the sun seems to move across the background over towards the left, towards Saturn. And this means that Saturn will eventually go behind the sun. Right now what it means, hard to spot Saturn in the glow of sunset. Now Venus is on the other side, and that, moving the same direction across the sky from left to right, means that Venus is up first. Venus is still visible in the pre-dawn skies at O-dark 30, about during diaper change number 1. And that remains brilliant, brightest of all the planets, but it is slowly moving around back behind the sun. Probably not there was that eclipse. Probably not the best time to look at that. Now, Uranus and Neptune are over in Aquarius and Capricornus at extreme right of the upper chart. Uranus is visible barely to the unaided eye, but again, this is the pre-dawn sky, highest in the ballpark of 2 a.m., 3 a.m., that sort of time frame. Neptune requiring a telescope if you're up at those hours. The most noteworthy thing is Mars, of course. Mars is now bright. It's brighter than 0 magnitude. You're definitely going to notice it, especially in a middle of nowhere constellation like Capricornus, which is quite faint. Is anyone irritated with the news coverage suggesting that Mars is going to scrape snow off Mount Baldy? They're all sitting there going, yes, it's another opposition. It will look 1/10 of an arc second bigger than... Look, there are better passes and worse passes all the time because Mars' orbit is egg-shaped. Sometimes we see it at its closest to the sun and therefore us, and sometimes not. But it doesn't vary that much. Please don't expect a giant orange bowling ball aiming for your skull, okay? But it is getting brighter out there, preparatory to the pass that we'll make in August. Now, most of the whole bottom part of the chart is bereft of planets, as you may notice, including the area labeled midnight sky. Those constellations of Virgo and Libra, that area of the sky would be great for a planet. It would be at its closest and brightest to us right now. There are no planets there. However, Jupiter, in the early evening hours in the constellation of Cancer, the Crab, is well placed. It is such a big planet, and far enough from us, it simply does not care whether it's at its best or worst, okay? Our little movement around the sun doesn't affect Jupiter much, and it's not lost in the sun's glare. So in general, all the UFO reports, when anybody asks you, what's that bright thing? Jupiter, right? If it was in the evening. Brighter than all the stars, beautifully placed right now. Now, of course, this is only the major planets. There are also out there some minor planets. As a matter of fact, I believe Vesta is actually pretty good right now. Ballpark of Virgo, I think. I'm just dimly remembering this. And you guys found out last month there is one other minor planet out there that you all need to know about, right? You know about minor planet number 13543, right? Which has been named asteroid Butler. No, I'm not kidding, actually, for those of you who weren't here last time. And this astounding thing, all you gotta do is send $40 to the International Star Registry. I got a certificate. Yeah, no. Apparently this is the real deal, but the question is, folks, how are we gonna make it pay for us? The answer is simply timeshare, baby. It's just a preliminary concept, but we're working on it, all right? Yankee ingenuity, anything is possible with money and bulldozers, all right? jumping off to the sky at this time of year. This is the way the sky looks after about one of those blackberry brandies. This is what you're looking at, straight up. The sky at this time of year, off in the west, the wintertime constellations are pretty much set. This is 10 p.m. for us here. Straight overhead, you've got the Big Dipper there in Ursa Major. You've got one bright orange star just slightly to the left of center screen. That is Arcturus, the fourth brightest of the nighttime stars. You have another nice bright blue one heading down towards south. That's the brightest star in Virgo, Spica. And then you also have another group just a little bit down and to the right of center. That actually is what we're going to focus on this time, which is the constellation of Leo the Lion. Now, it's much easier when you actually have the names that appear in the sky like this to find things. It works at Griffith Observatory. I don't know why it doesn't work in the real sky. But the star Regulus there, as they pointed out, means the regal one. It is a Latin-derived name. Many of the others in the sky, of course, are of Arabic descent. The constellation of Leo leading this area of the sky across the heavens. An interesting note, this is the time of the year when the Milky Way is completely around the horizon, not perfectly ringing the horizon. That's only possible from slightly south of our latitude on Earth. So we can just barely, if you saw an N at the top, all the way at the top of the screen, if I labeled that, there is Milky Way there. It arcs almost all the way around and disappears in the south in constellations like Crux that we don't get to see from here. But this is the non-Milky Way part of the sky. That doesn't mean it's boring. It just has a different character. The constellation of Leo is one of the very few that even my mom would have agreed looks like something. It does actually look like a lion. Now, what is it doing? Just lying there, all right? Oh, yeah, they wouldn't use that at Griffith either. They said the same thing. I thought it was funny. This is a nice, easy-to-find pattern. Regulus, a first magnitude star. Several of the other stars just shy of that. I didn't label the yellow one that looks like it's got the Y there. Why didn't I label it? I forgot. It's named Algaiba. I love the name of the star at the tip of the nose. One of my favorites, Ras El Asad. I call it Eraserhead. I don't know why. Ras El Asad sounds so exotic. Actually, Ras Al Assad would be a closer way to saying it. Assad means lion in Arabic. So, if you wonder why we have trouble dealing with some of the foreign leaders over in that part of the world who are named Assad, the answer is they're lion. Just teasing. Teasing. Yeah, like, you know, I'm sure some UN rep's going to borrow that and start a war. I didn't mean it. But Ras Al Asad just means head of the lion, okay? Now, this is a wonderful constellation and one of my absolute favorites to look at. You can see some of the stars there are numbered, 54, 93, 88. This is actually the product of some of the observing, believe it or not, actual observing I've been able to do recently, courtesy Bill Hall. We have been able to get telescopes out there and look at things in the constellation. Now, this is a graphic I didn't really need, but I had to show because some people thought it was so cool they just wanted to see it again. This is what year all these stars are, how long it took the light to get to us. You're seeing in the past. This is the past in many levels in this constellation. Remember, Leo isn't a place, it's a direction. Stars like Regulus over there, well, we see it in 1924, but look at the one above it, 172 BC. That is before, Strom Thurmond was in Congress, all right? That's a long time ago. And look down at the bottom there, 3928 BC. There were no McDonald's. It's that far back. So some of those stars are way in the background. I find the stars of a constellation to be worthy destinations for the eye, telescope, and indeed mind. Now, some of the stuff I've been doing, I'm actually making notes and transposing them into the computer. This is one of the many double stars in the constellation. Now, I only have two of the double stars, not the most famous ones, which are Regulus, which is a binary, and Algaiba, that yellow one with the letter Y next to it, the gamma. This one right here I had never seen before, and again, it's nice to see some of these double suns going around each other to convince me George Lucas was kind of onto something. This was a wider pair. Again, as of just a few weeks ago, I'd never seen this before in my life. It was kind of an interesting fact. I was over observing with Bill Hall and some other folks who've been in the club for many years. Even with as much observing as all of us have done, many times when I would suggest something to look at like this, we would go around the horn and find that none of us had ever seen any of these things in 30-odd years of observing. The point is, there are still discoveries to be made and new things to see for many, many, many years. It's really not necessary to get a social life. This will keep you busy for a long time. You folks know that in addition to stars, Leo is well known as a constellation featuring distant galaxies, background galaxies, and that makes sense. The NGP is the actual theoretical distance away from the Milky Way in every direction, meaning straight up. There is a south galactic pole, antipodal to it. Think of it another way, living in our big flat galaxy, this is looking straight up out of it. The Milky Way, since we're in it, of course, is theoretically all across this picture. We're buried inside our galaxy, but if you want to look out of it, sure, looking straight up or straight down out of it is a good way to look. Fair enough. However, the distribution of galaxies is not random, meaning that this doesn't happen to be just generally a good area to look. Galaxies cluster together in giant families and groups, and in fact, if I command through sheer willpower galaxies to appear as little red dots, you can see that they do cluster out there, and right off the back of the Lion, an easy way to find it because it's a distinctive constellation, this area, point your telescope out there in a dark sky and you will be convinced that it was worth spending the bucks on the scope, okay? All these little oval and smeary glowing things floating out there. Now, even though the constellation of Coma Berenices is at the North Galactic Pole, other constellations do get plenty of these galaxies, including the big clump down there between Virgo and Leo, known as the realm of the galaxy's core, the Great Virgo Galaxy Cluster. There are many of these galaxies which are actually visible in Leo. I don't begin to have time enough to talk about them all. These are a few of interest in particular. NGC 2903 did not make it in the Messier catalog. Why? He was, I don't know, a Frenchman, bad mood, just wasn't looking that night. That was a fairly bright spiral galaxy right off the nose of the Lion. It has frequently been described as the boogers, okay? I call it this. You're going to remember it now, right? And yeah, it's better than the galaxies over at the other end. You know what they came out of, friends? So the boogers right there, NGC 2903, I don't have a picture of it, but it's very nice. That's easy to find, but you know, Leo 1 has got to be the easiest galaxy to locate in the sky. It is immediately next to one of the brightest stars in the entire sky, Regulus. However, there is a problem with it, which is to say it is incredibly faint. It is a real challenge. Even though it's a close galaxy, it's a dwarf. Its brightest stars are only, I think, in the 18th magnitude, something like that. It is a faint little blur. Now, much more distant, but easier to find, are the groups of galaxies, M95, 96, and 105, just underneath the Lion's belly. That's a nice group. I have an illustration of M65 and 66, which is probably the more famous one. And in fact, the first galaxy I ever saw from Buena Park. You begin to get something like this with a little bit of dark adaptation and some deceit, I think. They are not like they are in the books. They're faint, ghostly, glowing blurs. They're not going to knock Johnny's socks off if he's hooked on SpongeBob and Nintendo, okay? But these are other galaxies millions of light years away, about 25-odd million light years, I believe, for these two, and should blow your mind if you are aware of what they are. Now, an interesting thing, the Leo 1 galaxy, actually, I jokingly suggested that maybe Bill Hall should shoot. He was just saying, what should I shoot tonight, while I was observing visually? So I said, Leo dwarf galaxy. Go ahead. He went over and shot the thing with a 6-inch telescope, folks, right in front of my eyes. That blob in the middle. Okay, it's like Barstow. It's not much, but that's home maybe to somebody. Don't knock it. Millions and millions and millions of stars in that hazy cloud there. Now, what is the big shaft going through there? Is it an alien spacecraft that people should cover themselves with a purple cloth and catch a ride or something on? No, actually. That is a diffraction spike, a lens flare from Regulus that's just out of view at the top. It's that close to it. You can't miss it, but can you shoot it? Leo 1 is a challenge. Now, for me, I don't just like looking at the pictures from here. I like bending my mind by imagining what it'd be like to look from the other direction. Let's face it, those are the astrophotos I can shoot, okay? From the other direction, this is only 750,000 light years away. It is in the local group of our galaxies. So if we had been back out on that galaxy looking back at Bill shooting the picture, we might have seen something like this. Our galaxy from there subtends 8 degrees of the sky, which is to say it would cover 1/2 of the constellation of Orion for scale. Shoulders to belt, belt to knees, take your preference. Furthermore, it's seen here as widely open, tilted open. Why is that? What direction is Leo? Up. So if you flew up out of a galaxy and looked down, you'd be looking down into it, not edgewise. So this would be an amazing and majestic thing to see out there. It is a proper mind bender, and these are some of the kinds of voyages that I like to take when I'm looking at the stars. Now, that is enough to bend your mind around at this point. I am personally here, not only because I love you folks and I feel guilty for missing last week, I'm here to see the main speaker. I'm in trouble. I am looking forward to this. So I'm going to get the heck out of the way with this Georgia sunset. Thank you very much for your time and attention, folks.
Our main speaker tonight is the Reverend Monsignor Ronald, a Catholic priest, now retired, who's an icon in the amateur astronomy community, both locally and internationally. Monsignor Royer tells us about his new observatory, built at his home near the town of Springville, just about 230 miles away from LA. He is a great friend and neighbor of another long-term OCA member and past OCA president, John Sanford. Of particular note in the presentation is the story he recollects of how John captured the first chilling moments of the tragic breakup of the shuttle Columbia and the subsequent almost besiegement of John's home by the news media.
Finally got the idea of retiring at 70 years of age, which I can do, and moving up to where John Sanford is. John, as you know, spent a long time not only with you guys, but also searching a good site. And at that point and at that occasion, he talked me into making the big move. I also had to care for my aging mom, so I retired very well from the Archdiocese of LA. Okay. Okay. And Cardinal Mahoney set me up real good, and we're doing just fine up there. I bought some property up there. It's 206 miles from Lakewood, about 230 miles from here. It's not a bad drive, actually. And Mom and I, we certainly like it up there. And so here we are. So you guys know where Bakersfield is. From Bakersfield, you hit Highway 65 and California Highway 65, and then how come it's moving? I didn't push the button. And then you get to Porterville, and from Porterville, you go up Highway 190 into the Tule River Basin, and that's Lake Success, artificial lake that was made. And anyway, above Lake Success, you run in through Springville. That's Springville right there. And that's about it. It's just a very, very small town, about 1,000-foot elevation. And then you keep going through Springville, and you come to the Great White Barn, and you turn left, and you go up Balch Park Road, and I'm about 5.5 miles up there. This is my property that I bought. David Billy Chandler found it for me, and John Sanford, too. And I'm only about a mile from John. This was the property back in 2000 when I bought it, about 2.5 acres. It has a nice horizon. You see the moon out there to the west, just looking west. All right, next. And this is where my observatory is going to go, right in this area at the time. My neighbor on the north, he's a little strange. He built a castle there. He's still building it. I see him about once every year. But anyway, next. Neighbor, this is my mom, and this is where our house was planned to be. This was a couple springs ago, and you see a few wildflowers there. This year we've had a lot more wildflowers because we've had a lot more rain. Okay, next. This is about a mile away from us, one of the many horse ponds that are up in that area. The area is just absolutely beautiful. Could we tweak the focus just a bit on that, or maybe the screen is not flat? Yeah. This is Ellie Norris's ranch. She's the last survivor, an elderly lady of a great ranch family. She turned this whole ranch, which is all back of me, and so we don't have to worry about development. She turned it over to the Tulare County Board of Education, and they keep it in what they call a SciCon program, a scientific and conservation program that all kids, both public and private schools, have to attend some of the classes up here. But the bottom line is it will not develop. There will be no lights there. All right, next. And this is up at Valtz Park, up on the ridge just above us. That's Mom and myself and some of the redwoods. John Muir liked this area because there's a lot of young redwoods along with some of the larger ones too. This area is just south of the national park. Recently it's been made a national monument, but it's well protected. This park, Valtz Park, is actually a county park, and it has some beautiful lakes in here next that they put right in the redwood grove. So it's really a beautiful spot. We got hot summers where we are, but you can just drive up there and have picnic lunch, something like that. It's nice and cool. Next. And there's our house. I designed the house, and it came out real nice, a massive carport. And where the outhouse is where the observatory is now. And anyway, I contracted a local contractor there, and it went along pretty well flawlessly. It was only 2 months behind, which is a speed record for Springville. Usually they're 1 or 2 years behind. There is a lot of building in the area, and there's a lack of good subcontractors, but we still got it built. It's fully handicap accessible. There's no steps or anything like that, and really works out very well. The house came out better than I thought. We had to sink our own well. The water we drink is unprocessed, comes from 125 foot down below. It's a really wonderful water. And of course, we also have a septic tank up there and everything. So the 2.5 acres we have is kind of what we need. You'll say, why is it named Royer Oaks? Well, the trees behind me there on the back part of the property, the west part, are all the native blue oaks. And they're fire resistant, and that's why they survive, because the grass here gets very brown in the summer and tends to burn. So we do have the oak trees there, but I also have a nice clearing and a very good horizon all the way around in the front of the house where the outhouse is. Next. And so there we are. The round pad was for my observatory I had in Lakewood that originally was up on White Mountain. It's been moved to several different locations now. Caltech originally had it up on White Mountain and had the TIE telescope, the 24-inch, that's at Mount Wilson now. So a lot of history in this. Then the square pad is where I put my camera tracking mount. And you see John Sanford's roll off? See it, that white speck up on the lower ridge? And then behind it, Mount Denison. Oh, that's John. So John and I, we wave at each other. I call him down for dinner, and if it's evening, I see his headlights come around the corner there, and he comes on down. So we're quite close. We're about a mile apart, but a little over 2 miles by road, because you have to kind of go around behind the mountain there and come up on him. I suppose some of you have been up to his place. It's quite spectacular, very nicely done. Next. And that's my mom, and that's my car. That's the sand pile. Okay, next. Let's look it out of my office as they were building it and looking up toward John's place and kind of give you a perspective. It's kind of nice to have an observatory 60 feet away from the front door. Really nice. Some days I get lazy, I get on my computer late at night and I say, gee, I don't want to go way out there. Next. This is from John Sanford's looking down on my place. Really just beautiful. You can see on where it's really well open there. I guess I should have brought the laser pointer, but you take about center and then come from center just down a little bit to the left. You see the guy with the castle way off, I mean to the right. You see off to the right, then my place, and there's another house up on a little knoll way to the left here. That's where we are. There's a lot of property back in further there that has fairly good horizon, but the problem in getting more than 1,000 feet away from the only road that's up there, Balch Park Road, is you've got to build your road. And the road can end up costing a lot more than your property. So anyway, next. Well, there's John visiting me when they put the scratch coat on. Okay, next. And there's Billy Chandler off to the right, and she's really the one that found that site for me, John behind me, and myself. This is Dome Rock up on the ridge, and then you're looking down into the Kern River basin there. And then way in the distance between Billy and John is Mount Whitney, and really nice area. This is not too good for viewing because there's a higher ridge to the west of us, so it's really not that good a spot. Also, you have to walk up the last quarter mile, so you just have light equipment to go on up there. We really don't have any good horizon sites up that area that are high. John is a little over 2,000 feet. I'm, well, thank you for the laser pointer. And I'm a little under 2,000 feet. But if you get higher up in the mountains, you start compromising a lot of things. And then, as old as I am and all that, I don't want to shovel snow. But anyway, so we get haze, but sometimes we're clear where we are, and the clouds hang over the upper elevation. So, all right, next. This was taken last year, just before the big fire broke out there. Remember the big fire? All the area you see down there has been burnt. That last big fire, it was caused by an irate, rejected wife. Actually, several major fires in this country have been caused because of the results of domestic problems. I mean, kind of sad. Anyway, I've been meaning to get up there to take a picture of it since, but I just haven't been so busy doing my own stuff down in my house. But anyway, let's look at down the Kern River, going down toward Lake Isabella. Okay, next. This is our swimming pool. You're all invited to come up and swim. It's finished now and it's working. And then this shows our my dome that I had. It's this fourth move. I had it, I got it from Caltech up on White Mountain at 13,000 feet, and brought it down to Azusa where I'm stationed, and down to Lakewood at 56-foot elevation, and down back into the mountains. And we spent about a week, a day moving it, but about a week both disassembling and assembling it again. It's an ash dome, so it went pretty good. They're good, rugged, reliable domes. A lot of people who have gotten cheaper domes have had infinite amount of problems with them. Ash domes are good. They are very reliable. All right, next. There we are, all completed, erected. Since the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, clears a lot, we get rainbows almost every rain because it starts to clear that way, and then the setting sun comes in under. So we just got rainbows that won't quit. And you see my dome there with the 12.5-inch scope, and then the white sheet covers my astrograph camera. Next. There's a rainbow that John has up there. Pretty nice little segment of it. Next. Did you see that? The color, that wasn't a false color. That's the golden glow we get with the sun coming through all the smog of the Central Valley, and our sunsets tend to be very colorful. That's John's place, 2x12.5-inch scope, and that's it. That's his roll-off. How's that? Next. And that's Mom. We had our first Christmas in the house. Got the tree just down the road, legally. Anyway. Ex-forest ranger, he's got his own little grove of Christmas trees right there. All right, next. And that's our house pretty much the way it is now with the swimming pool in, and that's pretty much it. That was taken in February. Right now, the grass is so high it almost covers the pool. The grass really grows, just something there. We'll be cutting it back down. In fact, the landscaper's working on that now. And wildflowers. We just have every conceivable wildflower you can think of growing around the house there. The area is just loaded with wildflowers. So the poppies and the field of lupins and the fiddlenecks were real strong this year. That's our backyard, right there. It's just absolutely gorgeous area. I picked the area, you know, for my sky and in a dark sky, but the views have turned out much better. This is through my 12.5-inch scope. That comet Neat that was around just recently, a couple of months ago, going into the west, into the sun there. So we had a fairly good comet at that time. That's the one that came quite close to the sun. We had clouds though, and I was hoping to capture it in the daytime, which probably could have, but we didn't have the weather to do it. That's Jupiter and the Beehive cluster, Chrysape there. Isn't that a nice, that's taken with my Hasselblad on my tracking mount. And in the upper, now focus on that, that's M67. It's actually resolved with a 150 millimeter lens. We could tweak the focus a bit on that. Anyway, the nice little galactic cluster is supposed to be about the oldest and galactic cluster and the furthest from the plane, as Chris Butler told us, of the galaxy, our galaxy. Quite a ways out there. And Jupiter here, you can see a couple of its moons. That's east and west this way. Next. And the next one's with the astrograph. Now, I deliberately misfocused here a little bit to try to do the old Dave Balin trick of bringing out the star colors. That's what I tell people in lectures. In reality, the sheet film buckled. And I took another one that I didn't cut up. These I have to cut down. There's a lot more film. But anyway, it did all right. Brings a lot of interesting star colors in there, fairly. That's Jupiter, and you can actually see 4 moons. 1, 2, 3, 4 moons right there. Well, that's what the astrograph does, but it is a problem with sheet film. The astrograph was designed for plates, but plates are obsolete now. They don't make them anymore, and when they do make them, you get a batch of them, and you pay $300 for them, and half of them are in very poor quality. So Kodak has pretty well given up on plates, at least on 4x5 size. In fact, I think that's kind of dying out. But we try with the sheet film. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it does all right. Tracking was quite good. It's a mount that I made when I was in high school seminary. I made that mount, and it still works better than some of the more modern mounts. Next. This was during the last Leonid meteor shower. We had a lot of haze. We don't get quite up above the haze. And then there was a full moon. And we took a whole bunch of pictures. It was very, very bad. Dan Schechter, who's here tonight, will tell you how frustrating it was. But I did get one. You can see that one. See him right there? Ta-da! Yeah. Anyway, this is Mount Moses. This is our main mount drop to the east. And has snow on it all winter. It still has a lot of snow on it. Next. This is typical of our sunsets. There's Mom, there's my dome, and this is pretty typical of what we get almost every night. We eat dinner there and just watch the light show. It's absolutely beautiful. Next. Okay. January 31st of this year. Steve Padilla, who's here tonight, solar observer at Mount Wilson, and Mary Craig, the wife of Tommy Craig, came up to visit me. And here we are at the neighbor's lake, and we had a nice visit. We hiked around. Next. And this is from our little hike coming back to the house. And see how hazy it was? It was foggy. It was dripping moisture off the roof. And so anyway, that night, they went to bed. And I was still at my computer around almost midnight, and John Sanford calls me. I said, you can call me up till midnight, but not here. And I said, John, you're back. He was down at Bill Coon's funeral, remember? Okay. That was on that Friday. So he came back, and he said, yeah, Ronnie says, I just opened my email here, and the guy says the shuttle Columbia is going to be passing somewhat over us, and I think I might get up in the morning. It'll be around a little bit before 6. I said, John, you're silly, stupid. Don't do that, John. You're worn out. He sounded so tired, I couldn't believe it. And I said, it's just a streak in the sky. He says, well, it's going to be up in the sunlight. We're going to be down, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I said, well, I don't think I'm going to get up. And my guests have gone to bed. So anyway, that was that. Well, anyway, this is the next thing that happened. Next slide. Yeah. Did you guys hear about John Sanford? He got the first video at the beginning of the breakup of the Columbia. He called me in the morning. I didn't wake up. Steve heard the phone, and he thought, Steve didn't know anything about this, and he thought, well, it must be something important, someone calling around 6 a.m. And John talked to Steve a little bit. He says, I took a video of this thing coming in. He says, I saw stuff flying off of it. And I don't know if that's normal or not. And but he says, I hear now that they've lost contact with the shuttle Columbia. So anyway, then he wakes up Mary, and they didn't wake me up. I figured I'd get mad or something. So anyway, I hear the two of them talking, and they're real serious. So then I go out, and Mary says, she's rather familiar with these things more than we are. And she says, that's not normal. So the two of them took off and went up to John and started walking him through what he's supposed to do. You're supposed to call the media, you're supposed to call NASA, all of which she did. And the poor guy, he was just groggy by the time I got up there. This was a truck that came up from Fresno. And before the day was over, every major network had trucks up there. And this was an NBC affiliate. He sold the rights to that. He's buying some new equipment and all that. But he actually did, and it hasn't been on the news too much. He actually did get he got a flash, an explosion. They worked out that he's been dealing with NASA. NASA and he are in contact constantly. It's part of the investigation, but this aspect is being kept quiet because most people think the breakup started more toward Texas. But in reality, when John got it, it was north of us. It was about over Mono Lake. There was a flash, and his video is excellent quality. He tracked it very well. A flash, and then something comes out real quick, and then something like a panel that's kind of gradually varying, like a tumbling panel of some type in brightness shows up there. And it's an excellent video. NASA bought his camera. They bought his tape. NBC has the rights to it, but every other network broadcasts it and everything. But John, in the meantime, has got a new video camera. But he says it's not as good as the old one. But it's key to the investigation. The reason they're keeping it secret is the big panel they have tracked about where it landed in eastern Nevada. They don't want a bunch of off-roaders out there, but they really want to recover that part. They may or may not do it, but it's part of the investigation. Of course, the story now is that a hole was poked from that insulation at launch. And then the hot gases from reentry, which was taking place just about over California, entered in there and started disintegrating the left wing. But that's not certain. There's other possibilities. John thinks maybe the wheel exploded, or there are other possibilities of what, but something exploded, and his tape showed it, and his tape was the only one that showed it. There were some other videos taken, and other still pictures, but they weren't anywhere near the quality. Anyway, John is explaining to the newsmen there what's happening. So next, that's the next sequence here. And there's Woofy, Woofy, his dog, always involved in everything. Next. It was quite exciting. Here's the reporter from, believe it or not, the Springville Messenger. And she said, she couldn't believe it. She's walking around in a daze. She says, well, I heard about this terrible tragedy, but she says to have a Springville connection? Can you imagine? So anyway, this was big news all up in the Central Valley. You know, John and I and all of us have been trying to get people to shield their lights, and we need the dark skies. And they kind of look at us like, you know, you guys are nuts, you know. But now the situation has changed. They realize we do some real serious work. And John deserves all the credit he got for this because he's just dogged in photographing everything that happens up in the sky. Well, it paid off. It really did. And it also paid off in the sense of, I think his tape will give a much better explanation of what happened, and certainly on the timeline, because he was the first to get anything to happen. Next. Okay, well, this is what we were trying to show on the video. This is 2 by 12.5 inch. Those trees are 10 miles away, guys, 10 miles away. It shows what you can do with astronomical telescopes. I have to be careful when I talk about how powerful these things are to the neighbors. You know? Because up our way, everybody is so far apart, nobody has shades, you know. Anyway, but but they have nothing to worry about because my video is atrocious. Anyway, this is what we're getting. It's really quite spectacular to see these moonrises. When the light first starts breaking through these trees, it looks like a bunch of rescuers with flashlights out there looking for someone who's lost. It is really quite a spectacle to see this go through. Okay, next. Now, as Chris Butler was talking about, we have an eclipse of the moon coming up. Focus, please, on that. I wanted to kind of end my talk by just sharing with you some of the experience that I've had in total lunar eclipses. I have a lot of experience in total solar, too. But this is, the upcoming one has a lot of great picture possibilities because most of the totality will be in twilight. And beginning twilight will be fairly bright. So there are different ways you can do. You take a 35 millimeter camera and just about every 10 minutes take something like this. I did way back in '56. That was before I was accurately timing things. But anyway, and it's really a phony. This is some tin foil, you know. It just, it was way up in the sky, so I said, well, let's make it look interesting. That was the old way we used to do it. You just mount a little bit of tin in there and mount your slide up. But anyway, there's a progress of a total lunar eclipse. And it was taken on the old ectochrome that was processed in E1, I guess. And that old stuff always went red, so the red is an artifact of the aging of the old ectochromes. The newer ectochromes in the E6 process are much better. And my favorite film that I took the Jupiter and the Beehive cluster is Ectochrome 100 VS. And it has good reciprocity characteristics. It doesn't have failure. And it pushes real good. And even though it's a 100 film, it's an excellent film. It's a professional film, but you can get it through mail order. You can't get it too easily through the local stores. But that's my favorite now. And then I process it myself, even where I am up there. And then I store up the chemicals because you don't want it to go down in my septic tank. So bring it to Visalia to a free dump, hazardous dump. That's what I have to do. The other stuff, though, I usually send out. So I do both. We are a little remote, but not as bad as you think up there. Next. Or you can, let's see, can we tweak focus on this one? Focus is poor. Yeah. Better keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, that's probably it. Well, this is with a press camera, and I'm going to do this again this time. 4-hour exposure on Ectochrome 64, although now it's easier to use the Ectochrome 100 sheet film, it's a little better. This was at f11. You just let it go. Stationary camera, and it shows the eclipse progress right through here. Yeah. Even at that, with the wide field, it still didn't quite get the 4 hours to get the rest here. But it kind of shows you how the moon gets deeper into the Earth's shadow, and it gets a little bit darker in here. Next. And this is with my astrograph on Ectochrome sheet film. This was about a 2-minute exposure at f5, but that was of the slower film. If you use a 100 film sheet film now, which is more the standard, probably about a 1-minute exposure. But this is going to vary a lot. on how dark the eclipse is. So you want to bracket when you're taking these kind of photos. Next. This is one of our most famous ones. This was in 1982, July of 82. I used the astrograph. I tracked on a star, which technically is not correct. You should track on the solar motion, but there's nothing to track on. So I tracked on one star, and then I took a 2-minute exposure here, here, and here, all on the same one. Actually, I think it would be better, and this time, this was about 10 minutes outside of the beginning and ending of totality. I think about 5 minutes would look a little bit better here. You see it started to flare on me. But these exposures are the same, so you see how it gets deeper in there. I've seen a lot of these where you take more, you take a whole bunch of them, but I think the 3 works pretty good. This time we're going to be a little bit further up north, so they'll be crowded together a little bit more. But that's what I plan to do for this one. This is a very effective way, because what you're seeing here is the Earth's shadow. See, that's the Earth's shadow right there. That's our Earth's shadow. The moon is moving through it, so it defines the Earth's shadow. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. That's a little bigger than the moon's shadow on the Earth, which is about this big. And travel agents get rich sending us to those spots where they occur, and they never occur in California. All right. But yeah. Even the ancient Greeks had some concept of what was going on here, and they knew that the moon was smaller than the Earth. And they also, just this picture alone, if you diagrammed it like they did, some of them, you can figure the size of the sun and its distance. All of that from just that type of observation. But I guess back in those ages when you were struggling to keep alive, nobody cared that much, except religious fanatics. They were darkness, but most people didn't care. But very interesting picture. Now there was 2 total lunar eclipses that year, which is rather rare. You have to. The next slide will show the next one that happened in December. But it didn't come out as good. Number one, it was a much darker eclipse. You can hardly see anything there. But and also it was not as central through the Earth's shadow. So it's kind of hard to track it around here. And then these things don't come in quite in sync. That's because I tracked on a star rather than tracking on the Earth's shadow, which is a solar rate, not a sidereal rate. But like I said, there's no way to figure that out unless you something like that. Next. This is a great one. That same one in July. This was just a 35mm camera. That's the eclipse moon. But I was able to go long enough to get the Milky Way. Of course, there would be a defect of the emulsion right on that. But anyway, you just overlook that. Yeah. But here's our Milky Way, the great Sagittarius star cloud, the small cloud, up here to the Scutum cloud, and really, really nice pictures. That's another thing you can do. Although this time the moon's going to be on the other side of the Milky Way. It's going to go over here between the head of Scorpio and Corvus. It's going to be over there in Libra. So you have to have a pretty wide angle camera to get much of this Milky Way, but you can do it. You can figure that out. That's another thing you might consider doing. But you're going to have a problem going too long, because even at the end of totality in this eclipse, we're still into astronomical twilight. Although toward the end of totality, you might be able to squeak in something that would show a little bit of Milky Way. All right, next. You want to take sequences, especially when the moon is going past bright stars. These are 2. This is this one, and then a little later when the moon moved and uncovered this other one. See, it's the same pattern. That's always very, very interesting to do. That's with my 12-inch, taking them about every 5 minutes. And it's just a couple of a sequence. So that makes a nice sequence. Do about every 5 minutes. Next. This is the situation we're going to have next Thursday. See, the eclipse is beginning in twilight. It'll be almost the same thing. But what you have to do is choose your foreground. Your foreground is going to really make the picture. Next. And then this was taken a little later on. That's the planet Saturn right there. And next. Possibly you could do this all on one exposure. You take 3 altogether. These last 2 probably wouldn't oversaturate. So I'd plan to do another 3 exposures on one sheet of film. Of course, you could cheat and take 3 exposures and then put them together in a graphics program. But anyway, this was done real. Next. And there's what you do when you do about every 5 minutes, I guess about 10 minutes apart. If you got a wide enough camera, just do a stationary camera, take your short exposures in here, and there you go. If you use much power though, you want to use a faster film to keep your exposure time down so it won't blur out on you. Next. This is what the 18-inch at Fort Observatory came out quite nice. Total eclipse. And then the next one is what you're going to get if you use a real slow film. And Fort Observatory, we could only track at sidereal rate. So, and I think also something else shifted in there in the drive. But what are you going to track on to follow that? But if the way out of this is to use a faster film and keep your exposures down as short as you can, because the moon is moving. It has its own motion, especially if you're using real high power focal lengths over 100 inches. Next. And well, this is where we are now. I extended this pad because the Chandlers have a 25-inch Dobsonian that we're going to set up on here, so we had to make the pad a little bigger. But this is the kind of weather we're getting right now up there. We've had a late and very wet spring, and when it does clear, we got a lot of snow up there on Mount Moses. And right after the snow, of course, it dusts the trees down here. And every once in a while, we'll come down to our elevation. And this is our setup. This is John Sanford, my mom, Mary Craig, Steve Padilla, and myself. And with that, I'll stop. So, hey guys, save your money and retire to a place where your dome is 60 feet outside the front door. Yeah, you'll get in a lot of great observations.
Thank you for watching our program tonight. If you enjoyed the presentation, please do consider joining us at a future meeting. Check out our website for further information. All our meetings are free. See you next time.